Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening. Tonight we're going to have a political discussion with our guest, James Osborne, and we're just going to talk about a couple of things that are going on in the news as relative to the politics. There's so much stuff going on. I thought it was interesting topics to go over and give an opinion on. Now that gives me the moment to tell our audience that we're not going to take callers because our guest is on a limited time, and we can only get in some of the topics that he wants to cover and just have a little discussion. So if you want to call in and comment, I would appreciate if you would comment in my comments on the front page, and I can contact you, and then we can talk about it on another show or at a later date, because I really want to get our guest on and get our guest off in a reasonable amount of time. So once again, no intake calls, just make comments or either, leave your number somewhere on our Facebook or on our Twitter, okay? Thank you. So let me introduce James. James, you there?
Yes, I am. Hi,
okay.
How are you, everybody?
Good. Welcome to the show, finally. I've been trying to get you on for a while.
Thank you for having me.
It's
Thanks for your
patience.
Things.
I
said thank you for your patience.
Yeah, I know. We both have such weird schedules. It's very hard for us to get time to sit and talk about some of these political things that are going on. It's crazy.
Which there are plenty of.
Oh, I know. I was just saying that I read something just before going on the air about Romney, because, I'm always looking for Romney news so that I can be the anti against the establishment that is so against our president, which to me, it's, I don't know whatever happened to people being accused of treason. Do you? Because I thought you could. Well, I guess if we were in a kingship, you couldn't say something bad. I guess we're in a free society, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called freedom of speech.
Yeah, so good when you have stations and newspapers owned by three guys that are always commenting against, you know what I mean? It's kind of against the whole thing. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's where we get into deregulation, when you get all that power, consolidated into just a small group of people as opposed to, a bunch of, different, trains of thought,
right.
owning various things and, having different types of dialogue, It gets to be a little bit more
You were telling me something at one time about there's a deregulation they can do to take the power away from just that little number of people owning all the media. That there's something, was that you telling me that or somebody else about?
No, that might have been another person who mentioned that to you. It needs to happen. It definitely needs to happen. Whoever said that, I agree with him. Most definitely.
Yeah, because they said there's a deregulation that the Democrats had planned on doing, but I think because they don't rule the House right now, they can't vote on it, but it would disband the hold that certain individuals have on the media, newspapers, and TV shows, and it would open more of a free market because right now, I don't know, a lot of people don't realize that the people against the Democrats and Obama pretty much own all the major newspapers, all the major TV stations. So that's why you hear so much against him,
There is a lot of truth to that, absolutely.
Yeah, so I don't know who. I'll have to find out about that because that's something that I think people should be really out there and be for because our news is so one-sided. But this thing that I read today, just a couple hours ago, the AP News, a guy named Ken Thomas was talking about Romney being a huge contributor to the shipping of jobs overseas. And the funny thing...
No, yes. The difference between outsourcing and offshoring.
Right, exactly. And that's what's so funny to me because he tries to deny it, and he's saying, oh, they're just being dramatic, and they're just putting out false information and trying to divert attention from them. But how can you divert attention and be false when this is on public record? It's written, it's on paper that you were doing this, that you're, let me see, what was it saying, that he was considered to be the pioneer in outsourcing to China and India. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But his explanation was that his company doesn't differentiate between domestic and offshoring. Well, how can you say that? You know what I mean? How can you not differentiate? The fact is, you're American citizens don't have jobs, and if you send them overseas outsourcing, then it should be differentiated because you're taking something away from your own people.
Well, yeah, that's the dirty little secret. It's like, well, if you ask the employee, it's like all they understand is outsourcing offshore, it doesn't matter. They're not working. They're out of a job. Their livelihood is now gone because somebody came in and wanted to make a profit. I mean, and again, there's nothing wrong with making a profit. You know, there's nothing wrong with, you know, somebody saying, okay, I can make millions of dollars if I do this, you know, for the people that are investing in me, if I do this kind of work, whatever. That's fine. But be honest and be upfront about your job and what you've done and your working experience. By doing that, you know, now you suddenly want to be president and run on the fact that you have this work experience. Well, okay, let's talk about that. Let's run on your work experience. Now, it's like that's when you have to deal with people telling you, like, oh, yeah, I used to work at this company by Bain, you know, this is what they did. It's like, don't run away from that, you know. Let's run on that.
Exactly, but we all know that he's a runner, so he's going to run from everything because he's saying that it doesn't matter, my job performance, my job records, all these things don't matter to the day. It's like, what? We can't analyze what you've done in the past to run a billion-dollar corporation when you're going to try to run the most powerful nation in the world? Why would we not look at that? No one not looks at your past when you're determining if you should take a job. And that reasoning is just insane to me, you know. And it's funny because Obama's response to him saying that there wasn't any difference between domestic and offshoring was very apropos and funny. He said, you know, why don't we ask the unemployed, because they don't need an explanation of the difference between outsourcing and offshoring. They need someone who's going to get up every day and fight for jobs here and fight for investments in the U.S.
That's right. That's
exactly.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and he wants to tell these unemployed people, hey, there's no difference, or we don't think about that, or that's nitpicking. They don't care about all that big wording of the day of, you know, how your company made, what do they call that, when you try to make an excuse for what you're doing to make it sound better, you know, glossing over the details.
Embellishing, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, that's what makes him a good politician, because, of course, he's going to go and gloss it over. But then Ryan, who is a spokesperson for Romney, he had said that Obama's speaking falsely and attacking Romney on these issues that have nothing to do with today to divert attention from his economic policies. And I'm like, how is he falsely attacking you when this is on record? Your company had to provide these answers.
Oh,
you know,
right.
You
exactly.
admitted this. Huh?
Yeah, exactly. No, that just goes back to that kind of business. It's like, that's fine, that's well and good. Nothing wrong with that kind of business, except if you're, you know, the employee, you know, you're making money, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, but don't try to make it out like, you know, oh, I feel your pain, I understand the plight of the middle class, you know, I understand, I can relate. Like, no, you don't. No, you can't. You know, based on your experience, based on you being the pioneer of offshoring jobs and whatnot. No, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, to me it sounds like what slave traders said when they were running plantations is that, oh, I understand it's hot out there and your hands are bruised, but we have to make the money to keep you guys fed, you know. It's something wacko like that. It's the reasoning that you're a billionaire and these people worked for you and now they're homeless or unemployed, and you're saying, well, those things don't matter. You're playing semantics with words and what you've done, you know. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to discuss because I was thinking I've always had a pet peeve with the outsourcing situation anyway because that's where we are today. Why we're where we are today is when they did the outsourcing all the way back to Clinton starting that NAFTA, you know.
Right, yeah.
You know, and people think, oh, well, it can't be that. It's like it takes time for the system to dismantle and break down over that much time since he instilled that. It's taken this long. I mean, look at how powerful our working force is. You can't do that overnight. That didn't just happen in the last 5 years, you know?
No. Yeah, that's the thing we were talking about earlier. When presidents, you know, implement policies and things during their term or their time in office, a lot of times the general public and the people don't feel the effects, good or bad, of them until after they're out of office and the next guy is in. You know, so they're constantly having to relitigate or, you know, to redo or undo things that the other person did. But they're either taking the credit or the blame, you know, for the previous administration.
Right, exactly. And it's so funny because we were also talking about how everybody's trying to give Bush all this credit for Obama's killing of bin Laden and killing him and all these things that he's done with the Iraq War and all these things. Oh, no, these things were implemented 10 years before he got in office. And, okay, so that's fine if you want to take that credit, but why aren't you taking credit for the fact that all of this with us not having money or all of us not having jobs and homes and the mortgages and Wall Street, whose fault is that? A man that's been there for 2 years did all that damage.
Right.
You know, it's like, wow, in 2 years, not even 2 years, if you want to think about the adjustment time, it takes 6 months, if you give them a minimum of 6 months adjustment. You know, so
right.
It's just these people got to wake up, and that's what we were saying. It's just like you can't have it both ways. You can't take credit for all this work that is finalized and getting done. Yes, he did implement and do a lot of these things. We admit that. Bush did do a lot of implementing, but he didn't, like in football, he didn't carry the ball over the goal. So he can't take the trophy home. That's the funny thing. We always refer to football. How are you going to claim the trophy when you didn't carry the ball?
Right.
You know?
And we all know he dropped the ball on purpose. You know, there was a time where he even said they used to question him toward the end of the presidency, you know. So where are we at with this whole Osama bin Laden thing? You know, why haven't we not caught him? And, you know, one famous interview he gave that the Democrats love to replay is a piece where he's talking about, oh, you know, I really don't think that much about him. I don't spend that much time on him anymore. And then he totally dismantled the one small group in I forget what department they were in, whether it was Homeland Security or, you know, one of the division of our armed forces that were actually put together just to go after bin Laden. That's all they were there to do. And then he dismantled it and took the money out of it. You know, so it's like he really meant what he said. He really hadn't given it too much thought, you know, into finding him anymore. And then when, you know, Barack gets into office, and that's his number one priority, which he stated when he was running that he was going to do that. The man did exactly what he said he was going to do, even right up to crossing the border, you know, uninvited, and getting him, if that's where he was. He went where he was at, you know. Exactly. And now with the drone strike, we've got Jimmy Carter now, you know, saying not so nice things about, you know, the humanitarian side of that, you know. And that could be argued, you know, but it's like the man is getting the job done, you know.
Exactly, and that's what it is. It's like the armchair quarterback coming in and saying, well, you should have did this, you should have that. You cannot do that, and this is what's so insane about it. Like you said earlier about you can only have one president at a time, and you can only have one person running the country at a time. You can't have somebody like Romney running around acting like he's the president, having opinions about everything, because this is how we look like we're in chaos. And
as far as
like
the international arena,
Yeah, and Jimmy Carter wants to come along and talk about humanity, but it's like, hey, when it's time to push a button or it's time to put some men on the ground and take somebody out, we don't have time to be calling you up saying, well, is it humane? Should we do this? Because then it won't get done. Then they'll say, oh, he's ineffectual. They said that for the
completely.
first year. He's not ready. He's not strong. Even on the
Exactly.
photos of him in the war room when they were looking at the whole thing go down with Osama bin Laden, they say, oh, look at him. He looks like a little boy. He looks like he didn't make a decision. And you're still saying that. Okay, so now that he did it, he kicked ass, he killed, he took them out, just like we do in America when you're from Texas or whether you're from New York. When it's time to rope them and ride them, you rope them and ride them out without asking second guesses. And now they want to say, oh, well, he should have stopped and thought. What?
Yeah. Well,
we never stop and
thing.
think.
The beautiful thing about, I think about, being a Democrat is that, Democrats generally think for themselves. They don't just take somebody's word and just lock, stop, and barrel, just follow, behind what somebody says. They think for themselves. So, there's a lot of difference in opinions and stuff within the Democratic Party.
Right. Exactly, because you and I were talking about this also before, about the difference between Republicans and Democrats as far as Republicans, like you have these black Republicans, you have these gay Republicans, you have Cheney's daughter who is basically Republican but a lesbian, and I'm like, this is where I feel like this is not natural, or I feel like they're making me uncomfortable because I'm thinking these people want you dead, or they want you not to have children, they don't want you to have homes, they don't want you to have jobs, and everything that they believe in is totally against you, and you want to sit in a room with them and go, well, I'm just going to stand close, but I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid. Really? Okay, great. Right. So you're like a soft Republican. Is that what you're saying? You can't have it both. Right. It's like you can't have it both ways. Like you said, they should be a liberal, right?
Well, independent. They should at least be independent. Not diehard, Republican. If you're going to be gay or, like that, and you want to deal with people that at least can respect that aspect of your life, they don't have to agree with you, but at least respect it. Don't wish you ill will what you can't have. Don't exclude you from, the American society just because you are that way. It's like, why would you want to be completely submerged in a party that, wants you out, So at least independent, you are your own side. If you can't stomach being with a Democrat or voting for a Democrat on most things, at least you're kind of in the middle as an independent. You can vote, Republican. Obviously Democrats can vote on Republican issues when they come up and vote that way, whatever. But I'm just saying, as opposed to identifying as a Republican. Because identify as a Republican, all I think of is evangelistic right-wing people who only care about themselves, and that's it.
Right. And that are obsessed with money and power. And so to me, like you just said, it's better if you say, if you're going to sit and say I'm a Republican, but I'm only going to take so many of this and so much of that and take a little Democratic this, that's not going to work because they are a strong, identifiable group of people. Now, as a Democrat, you can be a little of this, a little of that, and a little of that. But then, like you said, if you really want to be independent, then you can be independent and take a little of whatever you want, make a mosh of whatever you want. But don't put that label on it and say, I'm a black Republican, I'm a black a black lesbian.
You're a black lesbian.
I got carried away. I'm a black lesbian Republican. Let's not say that because then you may as well just wear a bullseye T-shirt and go down to Texas and tell them and see how long that lasts.
Right.
I would love to see them go to a rally in Texas and see what is your reception when you got there. What did they say?
Right. The people you support, they don't support you, but go right ahead. Have at it. Free country.
Have at it.
No problem.
You go to one of them barbecues.
So, what did you think of the hubbub with the Supreme Court smacking Arizona in the face?
I know. I was reading a couple of sites on that, and I'm still not clear into what happened. So maybe you have insight because I'm thinking, like they said on the front of Yahoo, that both sides are taking, credit and saying, oh, yeah, we got what we wanted. But I'm like, how is that possible?
Jan Brewer is basically saving face. She's the governor of Arizona. She's the one that helped spearhead that legislation into law, like signing the darn thing, and caused the mass exodus of, illegal immigrants, out of Arizona. But basically, there was, I guess, 4 parts of the law that was written, and I'm not an expert on this either, there was 3 parts that were struck down by the Supreme Court, and there was only 1 part that was upheld, meaning that they can go ahead with the law, and they could go ahead and enforce it. The Supreme Court didn't tell them how to enforce it, but they said they can. And that law was, if a person, let's say if I was driving down the street, I did something illegal, ran a light, got stopped, whatever, they can arrest me, process me in the, during the time that they're doing that, take me down, jail, whatever, and they have a question as to the legality of me being in this country, they then can ask me and ask me, to say, hey, are you here legally? Do you have proof of citizenship? What's your status? They can do that legally. They can do the searching and everything that they need to do to find out. However, once they're finished processing the crime or whatever it was that I did, whether it was running a light, like I said, once they're done doing all of that, they cannot hold me beyond that to wait to find out the results of my, being here legally or illegally. So that's what the Supreme Court upheld, was the fact that when they have you, stopped or under arrest or whatever, they can ask you and they can, have you provide whatever they need. They just cannot just arbitrarily look at you on the street and say, hey, you look like you might be here illegally, and then stop you and say, let me see your proof of, that you're here, your visa or your green card or whatever. That is illegal. They cannot do that. That was actually in the law, asking, that they had the right to do that. And they struck that down.
Yeah, because that's crazy because, in L.A., we already know about racial profiling with, they say it's against the law or they say it's unconstitutional, but, I myself was just pulled over in a sleepy little town. I will remain nameless because I have to still go there because I like going there. But I was pulled over, and I had never been pulled over there because I go over there for different things, and I can't even say what I go there for because then it'll tell you what it is. But, I got pulled over, and the guy said to me, well, what happened, the whole thing that happened is I drove past an officer, and he looked at me, and I looked at him like, what's up? And he's like, and so I kept driving. So then, like a little ways down the road, another officer pulled me over, and I said to myself, oh, he radioed his buddy to pull me over because he didn't do it, right? And so he pulled me over, and he's like, I'm like, yes, how can I help you? And he's like, well, I said, why did you pull me over? And he goes, well, I'm doing an investigation. I'm looking for someone, and I needed to ask you some questions. I said, oh, okay, so was it a guy that looks like me? He goes, yeah. I said, was it a guy driving my make and model of car because it's 15 years old? He goes, yeah. I said, oh, wow. I said, that's really strange. I said, well, this is a small town. I said, so let's find out what's going on because if he looks like me and is driving a car like mine, then I need to find out myself who this guy is. So long story short, it's just he kept trying to get all these questions in, and I said, excuse me, but he said, well, the reason I keep asking you all these different questions is because it doesn't sound like your story's adding up. I said, first of all, why does my story have to add up? Am I under arrest? He said, no. I said, well, then why are you interrogating me like I'm under arrest? I said, if I'm not under arrest, I don't have to make any of my stories sound like, whatever you're looking for. I said, the whole point is I was driving around. I decided not to go where I was going, and I was trying to think of what I wanted to do next. I said, so if it doesn't make sense in my mind, it's not going to make sense to you, and I retell it to you. So it was just, like you said, it's profiling because he couldn't even answer after that why he pulled me over. Some investigation with a person. Exactly. That's my point. That's all they have to do in Arizona is say, oh, we're looking for some people and you fit the description. And then boom. And I'm not knocking cops. I'm glad that police are protecting us and doing their job. I'm just saying, like what you said, that this opens the door for people to be harassed in Arizona because even if it's in law, they can still pull them over.
Yeah, which they closed that door, so that door is not open any longer.
Okay, good. That's good. I wanted to bring this up before we lose time because we're down our last 5 minutes. You thought you were leaving early, but it's already almost over. Now, this is what's funny to me is these black preachers and pastors and reverends in these churches having to be accountable for what they've been saying since Obama came out and said he's for gay marriage. And now, as I've been listening to a lot of the black radio stations that are playing church performance on Sundays, they're all like confused. You know, they want to vote for him. They believe in what he says. He's a family man and all these things. And now that he said this, they're preaching hate against gays that want to get married, talking about procreation will not exist. So isn't it funny how they're put on the spot now to a few of them had to preach for him but a little against what he said, and it's funny. Have you heard or have any comments on that?
Well, the one thing that I have seen is that at least there's a dialogue now, whereas before in the black community they never really discussed that openly. As many gay black men are in the church, in the choir, directing the choir, they just act like they're not gay, and they are. And so now they're forced to talk about it and actually be honest, you know, and kind of
bring it out.
Yeah, and the one thing that they've seen in some polls that were done before and after was that a lot of them are actually more sympathetic and more open to the idea, you know, than before. Before it was just no, boom.
Right, it was a yes,
now,
no, without,
Now it's been humanized, you know, so that people can show at least some sympathy and some sort of compassion, you know. So it's still a lot of dialogue that has to be taking place, and there's still a lot of ethnic minorities that still need to come out to the family so that they know that they've got one living in the house with them that they love and cherish, because that's what changes people's hearts and minds, you know, the fact that they know someone or that somebody's close to them. You know, because that's what's funny. Yeah,
and that's what's funny. This one pastor really put it right because he asked the congregation, he said, now, did you vote for Obama based on the fact that he was a Christian and, you know, that he was a family man, married, and have children? They said, well, no, that's not the only reason we voted for him. So they said, well, then why would you not vote for him based on this disagreement about what he believes about other people's rights? You voted for him for a whole bunch of a list of things, and that's why you're voting for him. It's not for this one disagreement. You can't put someone in the White House based on one thing that they said that you just so happen to not like. And I thought that was brilliant because that's what we need to do is to look at the person as a whole and think about what they can do and what they will change and not just, oh, well, he don't believe in what I believe in on this one issue. You know, and then you swing your power out. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. No, I mean, and then people, you know, and I hate to say this, you know, really, but people who vote, you know, on one issue only, they're ignorant. You know, they are really ignorant to everything else around them, you know, because here they are voting on that one thing that has nothing to do with them in their household, doesn't change their marriage, doesn't change who they are, their beliefs, what they, you know, agree with or disagree with. It doesn't change any of that. However, it does change the fact that, you know, we do have, you know, either Medicare overhaul or somebody looking out for the poor or somebody looking out for the kids in school, the public schools. You know what I mean? That all of that has a direct effect on who's in that seat, who's running the country. And if they're not going to vote for somebody based on the fact that they're voting for somebody else to have rights that these other people have, it's like, you know, they're
it's true. Excuse me. Yeah, it's true. Let me close out because we're at our last minute and just say thank you for coming. And if this is the Malay Show, I'm Terry Lockett. And if you want to contact us on Twitter.com/The Malay Show, MELE Show, and Facebook/The Malay Show also, or leave comments here on our website on the Blog Talk Radio, The Malay Show. And our guest is James Osborne, and we've enjoyed. Hopefully he can stay and we can talk about a couple of more issues on our archive. When you go and listen to this show, you can listen to the archive version and it'll have the things that we talked about afterwards, if our guest is so willing. But thank you for listening in. And, again, this is the Malay Show, and please tune in, write, or send comments if you want to discuss something in the future. Thank you for listening. So, yeah, now we're in our second half in our archive show. Is there any other things you want to talk about? I know you were telling me about health care. We talked about Michelle Obama crying.
You and I talked about that a while ago.
I know. I just thought it was funny because I put Michelle Obama crying in the on Google, and then all these things came up, and I'm like, did she cry that many times on other things? So
no, it's that many different people posted various articles.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden all these people come up with all these Michelle Obama crying moments, like she choked up on David Letterman. And I'm like, did she really choke up, or are they just doing that so that people will read what they said, And it's like now people are looking for places for her to cry, and it's just hilarious. Yeah. See if I can find one that will be funny. Michelle Obama cries. That's a new Google search thing.
You're right.
How are you doing for time? Are you good?
No, we're fine. No, we're good. I've got to be at the other office at by like 10:30, so about 10:25 or so.
Oh,
so
okay.
We're good.
So it's 10. Okay, cool. Okay, so it says here, Michelle stares back at Barack Obama crying. She does not look pleased. This was some celebrity world thing. And then it says David Letterman almost makes Michelle Obama cry. She weeps or tears up. I'm like, wow, they just run with these things.
Of course, everybody's trying to have material for their shows.
And it's funny because it's like when you look at the bottom, it has everybody crying. Cindy McCain crying, John McCain crying, Hillary Clinton crying, Barack Obama crying, and it's just funny how this web does that. Just goes
crazy. Did you ever see that picture? That picture of Barack and that little kid when he bent over and had the kid was touching his hair. Did you ever see that picture?
Oh, I think I did.
That was the most adorable picture ever.
That's right. He was in the White House.
Yeah.
And he wanted to know how his hair felt. And he told him, go ahead and feel it, right?
Yeah, he said,
that was great.
Like mine. And the president was like, yeah, you want to touch it? And he bent down so he could touch it, and he did. And that was just the most adorable picture, I tell you.
Yeah, I know. I had never seen anything. I mean, all the other presidents, they seem like they keep a little distance, but that was like a remarkable photo in the world to see them first in the Oval Office, and then second to see the little kid, the look on his face like he's just going to expect something to happen when he does it, He almost looked like he was scared, like, oh, my God, is it real?
Yeah. I was wondering, I was like, who are these families that be getting access, to the president like that or whatever? Come to find out that kid's dad worked, in the administration and was leaving for some other position. They were leaving, and so that was like their goodbye thing. And they were going to say goodbye and everything. So that was like a little nice going away thing for them to be able to bring the family into the White House and meet the president and stuff. So the dad had some kind of position, which is really nice, to see black people in positions. I always get a kick out of that. I mean, I'm even proud of, of Miss Rice. I mean, I don't agree with her politics, but I'm proud of her. She got what she got,
Yeah, I know. So I was thinking about that, too, because when they were talking about VPs for Romney, I was thinking, really? Condoleezza Rice? Because I didn't really think of her as, I don't know, it's just some of the things, she was too quiet to me in the White House. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't have any identity with her. Like, you could say Hillary did this or Hillary did that or Michelle did this or Michelle did that, but it was like she really rode that fence pretty well.
Yeah, she did what she was hired to do.
She was what?
she did what she was hired to do.
Yeah, I guess so, because, again, you can't overshadow the president, which I was really surprised that we didn't have that problem with Hillary, is that she was outshining the president, or they kept referring to her, because, that was the big prediction, is that, why would he put her in that position? It's going to be the Clinton hour. It's going to be, Clintons all the time, and it didn't go there, really. I mean, he disappeared in a good way.
No. I think she understands. It's like the Clintons might be many things, but I think deep down inside, it's country first with them. And they understand that would do too much damage to the country and that position, that office. So they respect that. Which is great. Because that's how it should be. It should be country first. Yeah.
Well, that's what brings to mind this book that I was telling you about one time, was the President's Club.
Yeah.
Remember that book I was talking about? Yeah, I was really shocked.
You actually told me about that before I found out about it. You out-scooped the people I get scooped from. Because I know from you first.
I forget what source it was that I got it from, but I was so excited when I found it, because I thought, oh, my God, I didn't know such a thing existed. And what it is that there's actually a club between the President Obama and all the past presidents, and not just from him, but it started back with Roosevelt, where they decided to get together and they would have little meetings where they would all, Republican or Democrat would get together and decide what's best for the country, but not decide, like tell him what to do, but more or less just give their opinions on, how they feel about certain subjects, or answer any questions on something that they might have been involved in that he could use. And I was just shocked, like I was telling you when I first saw the picture of all the presidents that are alive and Obama in the White House, and this is what they were saying. Yeah, this is part of that meeting. And the cool thing about it is that they actually, like I say, they counsel him on, okay, well, when I went through this is what I did, but they said they were very careful not to say what he should or should not do, so that they don't offend him and, turn him off, and then he doesn't want to be bothered with them anymore.
Yeah.
Which is easy to do. It's like you were saying earlier about one president can rule at a time, and Romney's running around saying things and speaking like he's also co-presidenting.
It requires throwing out international policy, and because, of course, you and I, we know how we feel about, his domestic policies, which was a hill of beans. So for him to try to, have a thought or an idea, of what Germany should do, in relationship to the euro, it's like, you know what, we've got a president, he has a cabinet, he's taking care of that, and he's doing a great job, because that man single-handedly came into office and repaired all of the damage with all of our allies in one swoop, that was done the past 8 years prior to him getting there. He repaired all of those switches, so he knows what he's doing, and our policies overseas seem to be doing quite well.
Exactly, and see, that's the whole thing, is that people try to belittle it. At the same time, they try to make it like it's so much wrong, but how can you be doing so much wrong when so many things are getting accomplished? The fact that he's still there and that there are no grounds for them pulling him out of office is enough of a testament right there. They try to say he was too young, he was too inexperienced, he didn't know what he was doing. But to spend 2 years doing that job, the most important job in the world, how can you now say any of that stuff? You don't hear them saying that stuff anymore.
No. No. Mitt Romney would be laughed off in his face if he tried to say something to the effect that, that he's not, running the country of experience or whatever. It's like, dude's been doing it for 3 years, and it's true. When you first walk in those doors, no, you don't have experience doing it, but that's where you got your advisors, and seeing cabinet members and stuff. That's what they're there for, you know, to help you get through that, you know. But the man's been doing it for 3 years now, so
exactly.
he's got the experience.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I mean, just the fact that he is an African American who can go and deal with the Queen of England or deal with Sweden or deal with Switzerland or deal with Africans or deal with any of these international heads of states and successfully not cause any kind of calamity like some people could have done, you know what I'm saying? That's a testament on its own, is that the fact that he has demanded in a very presidential way the respect of all these people and has gotten it, you know.
Oh, of course. Of course.
See, and that's the thing that's funny to me is the fact that nobody, well, not nobody, but these people that claim to be, you know, so American, they don't want to give him that kind of a credit, you know, because that is a very hard thing. To me, that's the hardest thing of all, is to take on these world leaders and to come out unscathed, you know.
Yeah, well, and you know, to be honest, you know, as far as him, he's not taking them on in a negative way. He's, you know, rebuilding bridges, basically, you know. The ones that he's taken on have fallen.
Yeah. That's what I mean by taking them on. I mean, he's out there talking to them, discussing, finding solutions, and it's working because we don't have some new enemies that are like just turned off by or international incidences with these people that are like, oh, he did this, and now we want to, you know,
you mean like Mitt Romney's doing with Russia? You know, insulting them constantly. I mean, it's like the relationship's already frigid, and now you want to throw more fire, gasoline on the fire. You know, with the incendiary words that he's using. You know, I mean, as it is, Barack and that guy don't look like they're too chummy. You know.
Right. Exactly. That's my point, is the fact that he could, if he was in office right now, that would be a problem that we will be having if Romney was in office. So we're not having that problem with the guy who is running things, so that means he's doing right. And that's just credit that doesn't get paid a lot, you know.
Oh, yeah. Well, the days of us looking for the other side to credit, you know, this president are over, because we know it's not going to happen. So he gets all the credit and accolades, Democrats and independents. That's good enough.
Right. Like you said, all the people that pay attention and all the people that are aware of what's really going on, those are the ones that know and that count when it comes to acknowledgement and also being intelligent enough to follow the real facts and not what these bought-out media people are spewing every day, you know, to me. I was just looking through, like, at this book by Nancy Gibbs, The Presidential Club, and she talks about Bill Clinton. She said Bill Clinton and George W. Bush are the rascal and the rebel, and Jimmy Carter is just plain trouble. But I'm like, that's got to be a funny place to be with those people all in a room having a lunch or a tea or something and talking about world politics, you know?
They probably don't even talk about world politics together. They're probably taking a break.
Okay, they're probably playing poker and talking about golf and how to improve their game and just all kind of little crazy things.
I mean, just think about what we'd be talking about.
Yeah, really, because, I mean, it's probably more about the other scandals that were in the White House that they have information on.
You know, right? Because it's the only people they can talk to it about is each other.
Yeah, you can't explain to somebody else, well, what happened when you were in office that you got to keep top secret. You got to say, if I tell you I have to kill you. But at least they don't have to kill those people because they all took the same oath.
Yeah, exactly. They all got to keep the same secret.
That would be interesting if somebody comes out with a movie about that. Let me see. We're at the 10:15, so I think we did good. So I think we could end this. This is all being archived so people can hear, you know, what we continued on to say. So thanks again for coming on. And I hope you had fun.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Time does go by.
You see how the time goes so fast, right?
Yes, absolutely.
all the bullet points that we had. It's like we didn't even get into some things because some things just flow, and it's just the information just really goes well. But I'll talk to you after. So, all right. Thank you again.
You're very welcome.
All right.
Okay, then. Bye-bye.